Oh, there she is. See if she can. Hi, Susie, can you hear me? Lovely, thank you. We're ready to start the meeting. Can you let us know when it's broadcasted, please?
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of South Oxfordshire District Council Planning Committee. I'm Councillor David Brotherton. I'll be chairing this meeting. May I remind everyone here that this is a meeting in public and it's not a public meeting. Only members of the public who have registered to speak are allowed to do so, and I will call them to speak during the appropriate agenda item. The meeting is being held at our offices in Abbey House, Abingdon. Committee members are here in person, but officers and speakers are able to join remotely. The system allows councillors who are unable to attend in person to contribute to the meeting, but only councillors who are present in the room are allowed to vote. The meeting is being streamed live on the council's YouTube channel for public viewing. Some procedural matters. For speakers and members of the public who have joined remotely, please ensure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is off for the duration of the meeting until you are called to speak. The Planning Committee is a decision-making committee of the Council, and it is important that a set procedure is followed. All committee members have received a full report on each planning application, either on paper or electronically, and it should be noted that committee officers, members and officers may be using electronic devices for reference throughout the meeting. For each application, we will hear first from the planning officer, followed by the parish or town council, and then objectors, supporters and local members. Each group will have 5 minutes to speak to the committee, after which members may then ask questions of the speaker. The committee may then ask questions of clarification of the planning officer. The committee will then debate and vote on each of the applications. Councillors wishing to ask a question or participate in the debate are asked to indicate this by alerting myself or officers by raising a hand. Voting will be by show of hands. Members, please raise your hand clearly and keep it raised to allow a count to take place. If it is unclear how members are voting through a show of hands, I will ask the clerk to undertake a roll call of those present and how they are voting. A few housekeeping announcements. In the event of emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the corridor immediately to the right of this meeting room, and then go to assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. The Democratic Services Officer present will assist you. Can everyone please ensure that their mobile phone is switched to silent or switched off during the meeting? Members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after their application has been heard are welcome to do so by the front door in reception. When the meeting has finished, I will ask for confirmation that the live stream has ended. At that point, please leave the meeting and make your way out of the building, remembering to sign out as you leave. I'm not sure who that is. Mr. Byrne. Mr. Byrne, could you turn your camera off, please? Right, back to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Peter Dragonetti and Ben Higgins, and Councillor Joe Robb is attending as a substitute.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Chair.
Minutes of the previous meeting to adopt and sign as a correct record of the planning committee meetings of the meeting held. I'm sorry, Tom tried again. Planning committee minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of November. Are we all clear with those? Thank you. Declaration of interest. To receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, or any conflict of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting. I see none. Good. Urgent business. To receive notification of any matters that the chair determines should be considered as urgent business and special circumstances. I believe the clerk has something to.
Yes, I would like to update members, please. So since the reports were published and you would have received them, last week, Planning Minister Matthew Pennycook issued a ministerial statement confirming that the government is intending to remove the duty to cooperate as a requirement in the planning system through new planning regulations that will be laid early in the new year. In a letter to the Planning Inspectorate, the Minister then asked inspectors of plans currently at examination, like a joint local plan, to begin any necessary dialogue with councils in advance of the regulations coming into effect. The joint local plan inspectors have therefore written to us at Southend Vale District Council seeking our views on the implications and in particular how we would wish to proceed. The council has invited the inspectors to proceed with the examination and we are currently awaiting their response. Just a reminder that the starting point for decisions taking remains with the policies in the current adopted local plan. The joint local plan is at an advanced stage of preparation and carries some weight. Where unresolved objections have been received on policies, limited weight should be applied, but where there are no unresolved objections, moderate weight can be applied. We have reviewed all the reports that were published, and there is, based on this new information, there is no change in our recommendations this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Good news. I hope. Yeah. Right, we'll proceed with the planning applications. And our first application is land west of Kidmore End Road, Emma Green, Reading. Strangely enough, it's in SODC land, but yeah. And the planning officer is Emma Barman. Emma, can you take this, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks outline planning permission for up to 70 new homes, with details of access to be determined at this stage. Other details of layout, scale, appearance and landscaping will be considered under a future reserved matters application if planning permission is granted tonight. So this is a site at the very edge of our district. This plan shows the administrative boundary with Reading Borough Council, that's the black line. So the proposed new homes would all be located within South Oxfordshire, with the access running through land within Reading Borough Council. The site's a former golf course, with the part of the golf course within Reading receiving planning permission for 223 new homes in 2020. So that's on, if you can see my mouse, that's on this site here, and you can see a couple have already been plotted on the plans. So these homes are currently under construction and they're being built out by Bovis. So on this plan, we can see land that's outlined in blue, and this is land that's in the same ownership as the applicant. As part of the proposal, some of this land will be opened up to the public to be used for recreation. And this plan shows how the site could be laid out. The new homes would be located over to the west and much of the land to the east. For those who came on site, you'll remember that was really sloping. Yeah, and that land to the east would be left as green space. So vehicular access would be taken through the Reading development, and we'd have a second vehicular access, which would just be for emergencies. There would be pedestrian access points over to the east to Kidmore End Road, and then over to the west to link into Highdown Hill Road. Both of these are within Reading. And your agenda has more detailed plans of the vehicular access and the pedestrian cycle links, and they're appendices 3, 4 and 5. So this plan shows how the development would relate to the existing built form of Reading. The housing to the east and west of the site extend further north than the proposed housing, and the development would adjoin existing housing development to the east, south and west. The site's also separated from the wider landscape by a thick tree belt that runs along the north of the site, and this is called Cucumber Wood. As outlined in the report, as part of the proposals, an area to the north of the site would be opened up to the public with a circular walking route around this area, and we've got a concept plan for that on the screen. The delivery and management of this would be tied down through the provisions of a Section 106 legal agreement. This element of the proposals will provide positive benefits to the new occupiers of the site and existing residents that live close to the site in terms of encouraging healthy lifestyles and providing access to nature. I note that some residents in the local area currently use the site to walk their dogs, but the site is private property and the owner could choose to close off the existing informal access points onto the land. This off-site space to the north will have a combined use, as it would also be used to provide significant habitat creation, which will amount to up to a 40% net gain in biodiversity. So I'd like to run through a couple of photos, and I've put some arrows on the map to show where I've taken them from, to hopefully help with orientation for those who didn't come on the site visit. So the first one we've got is taken from the high point of the site looking east across that slope. Then the second one I'll show you looks back towards the development that's currently being built out in Reading. So that's that view there. Then I've got one looking west towards the existing homes in Highdown Hill Road. And then the final one is taken from that blue land area, which is just looking between these two tree belts. So this one is looking east. You can see that's the bit of the site that really slopes down to where it meets Kidmore End Road. And then you can see the road within Reading rising back out of the valley. So that's the road when you come into Reading. It would have been the first turning to the left. I think some people who came on the site visit might have missed the turning for the site and turned within there. And then the trees that you can see just over to the left are part of the Cucumber Woods. And then this next one, you can see the edge of the development that's being built out on the Reading part of the former golf course. This was taken in the summer, so the development's further along now. Then this one's looking west, so that's towards the homes in Reading, which are on Highdown Hill Road. And then this final one, this is within the land that would be opened up to the public to the north of the site. So Cucumber Wood is over to the left of the picture. So the development would be the other side of that block of woodland. And I've included this extract from the landscape and visual impact assessment, as it shows the barrier that would be created by Cucumber Wood. So you can see that kind of, sorry, my mouse isn't moving quite normally, but you can see where that is. So it creates a barrier to the wider countryside beyond. This aerial photo is also useful because it shows the whole of the built out Reading scheme below. So that's in a slightly lighter colour. I've got a couple of updates for members. So at paragraph 1.126 of my report, I've listed the contributions that Reading Borough Council have requested to mitigate the impact of the development on services and facilities in Reading. These are all agreed with the exception of the £150,000 contribution towards junction improvements. So if members resolve to grant planning permission tonight, I suggest that this is recorded in the minutes as an agreement of up to 150,000 to allow for further discussions on this between the applicant and officers at Reading Borough Council. And then at paragraph 6.88, I refer to an updated plan for the Highdown Hill Road pedestrian cycle link that was submitted during the application process at the request of Reading Borough Council. So this is the link that's shown at Appendix 4. My equivalent at Reading has just asked that I mention that replacement planting will be required to mitigate planting that would need to be removed to provide the necessary visibility displays. And of course, landscaping would be considered at reserved matters stage, so that could be picked up then. And then I've got a couple of really quick corrections at paragraph 7.18. I should have said paragraph 11 of the MPPF and not paragraph 14. And then at paragraph 4.1, I've said that the site is under 5 hectares, but it's not. It's a site that's over 5 hectares. But this doesn't change anything because it's not a site that will result in significant environmental effects. So it's not environmental impact assessment development. So sorry about those few bits. Before moving on to the assessment of the application, I would just like to refer to the pre-application advice that I provided in 2022. This was a negative response, and I'd like to explain what's changed since. So firstly, we're working in a very different climate than we were 3 years ago. We have a new government who've made it clear that boosting housing supply is a key priority. The National Planning Policy Framework's also been updated. And as a council, we're now in a position where we're not delivering sufficient homes to meet our needs. So the pre-app submission in 2022 was also materially different. It proposed 100 homes and it included vehicular access off Kidmore End Road. So you'll see on the plan on screen that the vehicular access would go on up that steep slope into the sites. So in my view, a vehicular access in this location would have had a significant visual impact on the landscape. So to demonstrate this and also to see how the existing how the proposed development would be mitigated by planting, I've taken this extract from the landscape and visual impact assessment. So this photo is taken from that first road on the left as you go into Reading. If you can see it, I couldn't from here, but there's a little A on the map before that shows on the back below that shows the direction it's taken in. Anyway, it's across the valley from that high point that slopes down. So in the pre-app proposals, the access road would have cut across this hillside. And obviously that's no longer proposed in the planning application. So the view on screen shows the proposed development at year 15. So at which time views of the development would be limited. Again, I'm not sure if you can see because it's quite small, but there's a red line that shows the extent of the development. So in addition to the pre-application scheme having a far greater landscape impact, the applicants also developed the proposals for the open space to the north on the sites. So these will have associated landscape enhancements and biodiversity net gain, which is an additional benefit that we didn't have at pre-application stage. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then in terms of the assessment of the application, following the submission of amended plans, technical issues have been resolved. And I don't consider that there'd be any reason to refuse planning permission on the basis of technical matters. So the key consideration with this one is the overall principle of the development. This is a scheme that's contrary to our development plan policies. It's not an allocated site. It doesn't fall within any of the exceptions where we support housing. It's clearly not infill. It's a scheme that's been progressed because we cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year supply of deliverable housing sites, which means that the policies that are most important for determining the application, which are some of our housing policies, it means that they're out of date. The result of this is that paragraph 11D of the National Planning Policy Framework, which is otherwise known as the tilted balance, is in play. The tilted balance tilts the balance in favour of approving an application. So our starting point is that planning permission should be granted unless any adverse impact of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. And in making this assessment, we're required to have particular regard to specific matters, and this includes directing developments to sustainable locations and providing affordable housing. And then, as we have a neighbourhood plan in this location that's less than 5 years old and allocates housing, paragraph 14 of the National Planning Policy Framework is also relevant. So this doesn't disapply the tilted balance in paragraph 11, but it provides an additional layer of protection. It states that the adverse impacts of allowing development that conflicts with a neighbourhood plan is likely to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. So it's important to note that paragraph 14 doesn't create an absolute bar to development. The use of the word likely reflects the fact that decision makers must still consider whether other material considerations justify a different outcome. So this remains a matter of planning judgment. Accordingly, in situations where paragraph 14 is relevant, officers should still continue to assess each application on its own merits, taking into account site-specific considerations and the full range of material factors. The Planning Committee is also entitled to reach a different view where it considers that the planning balance leads to a different conclusion. In this case, I consider that the site has some unique characteristics in that it has existing housing on 3 sides and that it wouldn't extend any further into the countryside than the existing built-up parts of Reading to the east and west. In my view, it's got a stronger relationship with the built-up area of Reading than the South Oxfordshire countryside to the north. This is a location which is sustainable, where future residents would have genuine opportunities to choose to access essential services and employment by walking, cycling, wheeling, or utilising public transport. The delivery of much needed affordable housing in a location where future residents will not necessarily need to own a private car is a material consideration that has considerable positive weight in the planning balance. The proposals for the land to the north of the site would have benefits in terms of recreation and healthy living, and the landscape enhancements and biodiversity net gain in this area also add further positive weight to the proposals. On the other side, the landscape impact does weigh against the development. The site's identified as falling within a local valued landscape in the Kidmore End Neighbourhood Development Plan. The council's officers considered the scheme and is of the view that the landscape impact of the development can be accommodated. The development can be accommodated on the site without significant landscape harm. This is because the site's well contained, and with mitigation, the proposed development can be accommodated sensitively. There's also conflict with the separation of settlements policy in the neighbourhood plan. The proposal would not impact on the visual separation between Reading and Chalkhouse Green, which is a small settlement to the north, but will to a limited extent reduce the physical gap. So to conclude, although the development's not consistent with our spatial strategy, it would still result in a sustainable pattern of development. Despite the conflict with neighbourhood plan policies on infill, local valued landscapes and separation of settlements, your officers considered that there are compelling reasons to allow this development, which would provide a valuable contribution towards reducing our land supply deficit and provide homes to meet the needs of our communities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Lot to think about. Okay, I have two speakers, Caroline Aldridge from Kidmore End Parish Council and Philip Allen. Can I call on Dr. Caroline Aldridge? You're a long way away, Caroline. We don't have microphones, so.
Okay, well, hopefully you'll be able to hear me.
Yeah, okay. And you have 5 minutes from when you start speaking.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Kidmore End Parish Council and my parishioners. Last Thursday, Matthew Pennycook, Minister for State for Housing and Planning, issued a statement on reforms to plan making, emphasising that the plan-led approach is and must remain the cornerstone of our planning system. What we ask today is simply that you follow this guidance and make a plan-led decision and refuse this outline planning application. The main reason being used to justify approval is the tilted balance. This is a simple test. Do the harms of the development significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits? If they do, the application must be refused. I shall now explain why the tilted balance has been misapplied. Under NPPF paragraph 14, neighbourhood plans like ours, less than 5 years old and with a housing allocation, are protected. Your own officer confirmed in 2022, even if the land supply fell below 5 years, the adverse impacts of allowing development that conflicts with a neighbourhood plan are likely to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The 2025 report is inconsistent with that assessment, inexplicably failing to give the necessary significant weight to the neighbourhood plan and underplaying the very real and permanent harms this development would cause. The latest report has a serious omission which affects the application of the tilted balance, namely deliverability. Under the NPPF definition, a site that is not deliverable cannot justify the tilted balance. This site is not deliverable within 5 years because it is outline only. It has no approved access. It relies on unresolved external applications. There is no developer, no programme and no timeline, and it has major ecological constraints. With the tilted balance removed or given limited weight, your decision must be led by the development plan, comprised of the SODC local plan and our neighbourhood plan. As I shall go on to explain, This proposal conflicts with both parts of the development plan, so the legal presumption is refusal. This proposal breaches Strat 1 and H1. The site is not within the spatial strategy of the current or the emerging local plan. The proposal breaches NDP policy LPLV, local valued landscape. This is not just former golf course land. It is part of the Chiltern Dip Slope, a chalk plateau cut by dry valleys, ancient hedgerows, woodland edges, and undulating landform. According to our neighbourhood plan landscape sensitivity study developed with SODC, the area has high landscape sensitivity and cannot accommodate new development without significant and adverse impact on landscape character and visual amenity. The landscape forms vital functions. It forms a rural buffer between Reading and our villages. It forms the distinctive dip slope character linked to the wider Chilterns and the national landscape. It supports priority habitats and the identity of our parish. Development here would cause significant permanent harm. This legal position is not open for personal interpretation. The proposal also breaches NDP policy LCSS, separation of settlements. In 2022, the officer stated the reduction in separation between Reading and Chalkhouse Green could not be mitigated and weighed significantly against approval. That harm remains unchanged today. The proposal breaches NDP policy LCI infill. This is not infill, it is suburban expansion into open countryside. On ecology, NPPF 180A is clear. Planning permission should be refused where significant harm to biodiversity cannot be avoided or adequately mitigated. Here, there is permanent residual harm to dormice and harm to barbastelle bats, a species of international importance. This alone meets a national test for refusal. To conclude, as you have heard, this proposal directly conflicts with both the NPPF and the development plan. So the legal presumption must be refusal. In 2022, your officer advised refusal, even in a land supply shortfall.
That's 20 seconds.
The utility balance has been misapplied and based on outdated evidence. The site is not deliverable. The landscape harm is significant and permanent. The ecological harm meets the NPPF test for refusal. On behalf of Kidmore End Parish Council and our residents, I respectfully urge you to take a plan-led approach as per Matthew Pennycook's instructions, protect the integrity of our neighbourhood plan and refuse this application. There is no lawful, defensible or evidence-based reason to approve it.
Okay,
Thank you
very
for
much.
listening.
Thank you for your presentation.
And I welcome any questions.
You beat me to it. Yeah. Committee, are there any questions? Crispin?
We're on dormice and bats. Where are these located, do you think, within the site?
Well, I think the bat activity has reduced with the new housing, but there were 40, oh, I might be wrong there, but there were 40 sightings.
Mm.
It's very important for the bats, that area, and any extra light is very, very bad for them.
Yeah.
And the dormice they've had to move. The new development had to move. They've been squished into.
So have they been relocated to?
No, I think they have just been.
Councillor Sadler, you have a question?
Yes, mine's on paragraph 14.
Yes.
And you made the point. Can you just go over it again? If it's outline only, then it won't meet the 5-year timescale.
It won't, and it won't add to your housing shortfall.
So it doesn't. So what was explained in 6.12, whatever it was, about the 5-year housing land supply, and the fact that we haven't got the 5-year housing land supply package now, means that in this case, this actually is not going to change that, is it?
No, it can't be added in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rob?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your presentation, Nicole. I wondered, could you give me your view on what's changed since the outline, since 2022, in particular regarding the proposal to create open space with open access for members of the public as a sort of offset to the loss of this green space?
But I said, well, that all that land is very important. And if I don't know if you went to the site visit.
I didn't go to the site visit, but I walked my dog on the site today, so.
But if you look, you've got a lovely plateaus either side, and you've got a big valley.
Yeah.
And I don't think how developers really want to build houses on a deep valley. But the valley is only a valley if it's got the plateaus either side. So they've been very generous, saying, "Oh, you can have the valley as for recreation," but I don't think they could build houses there.
I was referring in particular to the land to the north of the site, where, as I understand it, there's a proposal to open up land that also belongs to the applicant and to make that open access land for the public.
I can say that the developer has not spoken to Kidmore Parish Council about that, so I haven't got any information about that. And we did ask.
Councillor Roberts.
In your neighbourhood plan, how many building sites are there and how many houses are proposed?
We have a proposal for 4 houses, but we have an electorate of 1,000. So we are a very small parish.
So how many sites?
We have 1 site,
Just one
with
site?
4 houses. But we did, I think it was about 10 years ago, we supported a rural exception site, which had 6 houses. So we're not against development, we just want development in the right place. And if those 7 houses are built, those people will have to drive to Galstree Common to vote. It's ludicrous.
Unless they change the boundary.
Unless they change the boundary, and that is above our pay scale, I think.
Yeah. Councillor Norman, you have a question?
So are you a smaller village under the planning?
I've got 5 hamlets in my parish.
Sorry, that's a technical definition.
So we have 2 smaller villages. One village has a school and a pub, and a church. So I think we are a small village.
And the point of my question was, were you required to have any allocation of housing at all?
No.
Thank you.
No, that's why we wanted a strong neighbourhood development plan. So we had a housing allocation, and that took about 4 years to get people to say yes to having a housing allocation.
Okay. Councillor Topping.
Just quickly, you made the point that you didn't think this scheme was deliverable.
Yes.
And you said that was because it was an outline application. Now,
No, because there's a very good presentation, but it shows the access to that site is through Reading.
Yes, but that's not unusual where a site is on the boundary
Reading
between 2 administrative areas.
Yeah, but Reading got a planning application in, we think, for that, but they haven't decided. If Reading Borough Council decide yes, you can use that access,
Well,
then
they're
yes,
probably
the site
waiting
will
for the
be.
decision here
Yeah.
tonight.
Then they might be.
Yeah.
Can we move on, Christian, please?
Yeah.
You're
So it's a
right.
technical
Yeah.
thing.
It's a technical thing.
Yeah,
So
really,
I think that's a question for the officer, not
Yes.
for.
yes, it's not deliverable, I don't think, at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
very much.
Thank you very much for listening.
The next speaker is Philip Allen. The boy of planning, who's a slaughter. Okay. You have 5 minutes when you start speaking.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Philip Allen and I'm speaking in support of the application as planning agent. The scheme proposals have been designed to form a natural rounding off of the existing development currently under construction to the south. Vehicular access will be taken via the existing roads under construction, with the proposed built form not extending any further north than existing housing along Kidmore End Road and High Down Hill Road. In developing the proposals, we have had full regard to the various site constraints and have ensured that there's a significant landscape buffer to Cucumber Woods, which is ancient woodland, and other areas of woodland, whilst the proposed built form is restricted to the level parts of the site formerly occupied by the golf course. As a result, your landscape officer raises no objection, as do no other statutory consultee. In light of this, development will be seen as an extension of the new housing scheme, with Cucumber Wood forming the natural extent to the urban area. In addition, the proposals will deliver a number of benefits, which include the provision of up to 70 new homes in a range of sizes, of which 28 will be affordable. These will range from smaller homes suitable for people looking to downsize or those wishing to get onto the housing ladder for the first time, up to larger homes more suitable for families. Once detailed planning permission is granted, which we consider to be within 12 months of this planning application being approved, the construction phase would be expected to be complete within 9 to 12 months, meaning that housing delivery from the site will make a positive contribution to remedying the council's 5-year housing land supply shortfall. As part of the proposals, and as explained, a large area of over 11 acres encompassing the shallow valley north of Comfort Wood, and which has been in private ownership with no secure public access, would become a new area of publicly accessible open space in perpetuity. This will provide informal recreational opportunities, not just for new homeowners, but the whole community. The delivery of a comprehensive landscaping scheme within this space will deliver a 40% biodiversity net gain, significantly higher than that required by the Environment Act. As this space will remain open in perpetuity, means that there's no prospect that it will be developed in the future. In addition, new areas of public open space, including areas of play, will be provided within the application site. Associated with this, new pedestrian and cycle connections will be provided onto Kidmore End Road and Highdown Hill Road, and together with the open space to the north, new circular walking routes will be created to encourage an active lifestyle. In addition, the proposals will deliver multiple economic benefits and financial contributions to local infrastructure and upgrades. The proposals have been designed to achieve the highest environmental standards in order to align with the sustainability requirements of your local plan. As part of this, the proposals will seek to limit internal water use to 105 litres per person, in line with best practice under the building regulations. Alongside this, the project will also utilise rainwater harvesting techniques for the upkeep of soft landscaping, whilst grey water harvesting will be investigated for use in the flushing of toilets to offer further reductions in water use. Throughout the application process, we have had a productive dialogue with your planning officers and other statutory consultees, which has enabled further improvements to be made to the scheme proposals and has resulted in no objection from any statutory consultee. In summary, we consider that the proposals would represent a natural rounding off to the existing urban edge, whilst delivering a range of benefits, including publicly accessible open space. And as such, and as set out by your officers, the proposals would be in accordance with national and local policies, which allows discretion in terms of any conflicts with existing policies, and I therefore respectfully request that you approve this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rich, are there any questions?
I have one.
Councillor agree.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, because when we were there, there were already dog walkers on the site, and so the element of opening up this extra space, would it be true to say that it's already open?
It's yeah, I know it's used informally by dog walkers, but at the moment it is private land, so the landowner could tomorrow restrict access. What this application does is secure that public access in perpetuity. So at the moment it's effectively not authorised that people walking across that site. So yeah, like I say, this will secure it in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Just adding to that, at his point, on the same subject, how is that going to be achieved? Will that be by planning condition, or will that be through some sort of other legal agreement? How do you see that being put into practice? We can be certain that if this was to be approved, that the 70 units is it.
Yeah, so that space we anticipate will be secured through a legal obligation. Yeah. Because part of that land will also be used for the biodiversity net gain, which will have a landscaping scheme. So by Environment Act, that has to be secured for a minimum of 30 years. But as I say, the legal agreement required the remainder of that space to be kept open in perpetuity forevermore.
And it would be managed? How? It would be looked after.
At the moment, and that's to be fleshed out in the detail, but at the moment we anticipate a management company being responsible for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's possibly more appropriate for our next move on. Yeah. Okay. No further questions. So thank you very much for your presentation. Okay. Our local ward member's not here, so we will move on back to Emma for questions. the planning officer. Councillor Dole.
Looking where it is on the boundary with Reading, is this not Greenbelt?
It's not, no, so our green belt is all up around the edge of Oxford.
Reading doesn't have one.
No,
Reading has got Greenbelt.
Reading doesn't have a green belt, no.
Okay.
Yeah, that occurred to me when I was looking at it, and I thought, oh, Reading hasn't got a green belt. Oh, interesting. Councillor Rob.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Emma. Could I ask about the legal and planning status of this landscape designation this site had under the Kidmore End Neighbourhood Plan, local value landscape? Could you explain to us what that means and what its status in planning is, please?
Okay, so it's been designated through the neighbourhood plan process. So as part of developing the neighbourhood plan, Kidmore End Parish Council appointed a consultant who looked at the land and considered that it was had characteristics that took it above normal countryside. So it's got, some of it has very strong links with the surrounding area of outstanding natural beauty. So in terms of its where it sits legally, there's a planning policy that gives it sort of higher status than the normal countryside. But it's the area that it involves is the whole of the area from the edge of Reading up to the edge of the Chilterns National Landscape. And I think our landscape officer's view was this bit is very cut off, very separate from the rest, which has a stronger relationship with the national landscape, whereas this has a relationship with Reading. So it's a policy which then requires us to make a judgment on whether the development's acceptable.
Thanks.
Councillor Topping.
Emma, we received, all members of the committee received a letter this week from a campaign group making 6 good points, many of which were related to the fact that this site is more related to Reading clearly than our area, and was basically saying that Reading is going to take all the cost, all the traffic. It even made the point that our bin lorries are bigger than theirs. Is this 150,000 that you referred to earlier in settlement of all of those issues, and are Reading Borough Council happy with that settlement? I presume they are if they've agreed it.
So there's a little bit of a story behind it. So I think it's reasonable for Reading Borough Council to ask for contributions towards their services and facilities, because in reality people are going to use the services and facilities in Reading. So as you know, we take contributions through SIL, but through our SIL spending strategy, we don't have any sort of agreement where we can pass money on to a different council. So there's no way through SIL that Reading could get any money from us to mitigate the impact of this development. So I think it's reasonable that through the Section 106 legal agreement that Reading do get contributions from the developer to offset the impacts of the development. And those have been agreed for contributions towards healthcare in Reading and leisure. The one thing we haven't agreed yet is the contribution towards highways improvements. And that's why I think today we can agree a contribution of up to £150,000, because it really has to be a discussion between Reading and the developer for them to provide the justification for it. In terms of where that figure's come from, my equivalent officer at Reading took a report to his planning committee, and I think in that report there was an officer recommendation that £50,000 should be secured towards the upgrades to the junction. But at that committee meeting, members chose to increase the amount to 150,000. So that's why we're in this position where at the moment we haven't been provided with sort of the justification for how that's proportionate. And I think those discussions need to continue. But the applicant has, it will be a contribution of up to 150,000. If Reading can justify that contribution, it could be at the max of that. But I think that's really something that they need to discuss together. So yeah, all the contributions are agreed. The principle of a high-rise contribution agreed, but it's just fleshing out the details of the amount.
Just one more quickly, the access, because this came up earlier. The lady from from Kidmore End Parish Council mentioned that the access hadn't been agreed. Obviously, that was countered by the gentleman from Boyer Planning. But what's your position on that?
Okay, so the applicants had, because it's a scheme that goes across 2 local authority areas, the applicants had to submit the same application to Reading Borough Council. And I think Reading are waiting, and given that the housing's in South Oxfordshire, Reading are waiting for us to see the direction of travel that we're heading in. Before then they take their application to planning committee. So there is an application that will involve those changes to link this scheme onto their existing scheme, and that would be considered at one of their committees, possibly in the new year.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Long.
Officer, this is a question about the effect on the 5-year housing land supply. Insofar as it's possible to predict the speed of build and other presumably unknown factors, what possible outcomes could there be? I mean, can you quantify the effect that this particular development would have on our 5-year housing land supply, a sort of best and worst case scenario?
I've got a little bit of information about that, only because we had a meeting earlier with somebody who looks at our 5-year land supply, because it's quite technical. And he explained that if this development was permitted tonight, we would expect it to be contributing in the 5th year. So it would contribute towards our 5-year supply, but it wouldn't be delivered until, I don't know if that's year 4 or year 4. So yes, it would impact on our current 5-year supply if it was permitted today. But I don't know, we can't guarantee. I mean, we've had 5-year supply sites that we permitted 6 or 7 years ago that haven't started yet. So we can't guarantee anything, but I think in this case, we've got a scheme that's being built out in Reading, and there's potential that, depending on timings, that could continue onto this site. So it could be one where there's a speedier delivery if the same house builder could be used to continue. I don't know where the developer is with those discussions, but there's that potential. But as I've said, we've previously been in situations where things haven't delivered in 5 years when we've expected them to. So it's a bit difficult for us to say for sure.
Thank you. And I know it is very technical, which is why I wanted you to explain it, because it's difficult for us to understand it. But if it is it possible to quantify, for example, at the moment, if we have 4.5 years, is it possible to quantify what effect that would have? So would it push it to whatever? And I'm sorry, that's an unfair question.
No,
I'm trying to get a handle on what contribution, what level of contribution this could potentially make to our 5-year housing land supply.
It's a very good question, and I wish that I retained some more information from the meeting earlier today, because our policy expert did give us a number. This is how many houses we need to get back up to 5 years. And I'm going to ask Emily if she remembers what that was.
No, I don't want to give you inaccurate information. So no.
So it would make a contribution, but we can't quantify it.
I do remember something. It was if this was approved, it would, I want to say 10%. I'm sure Tom Rice said it would provide 10% of what we need to make up
Of the shortfall.
of the shortfall, yes.
Right. Okay. That makes some sense.
All right, I think we're not going to get anywhere with that.
Sorry.
We understand what the issues are. I'm going to go to Catherine. Catherine.
On this point, isn't it a bit more significant that the JLP is resurrected and is likely to go forward to examination, which would deal with the issue? I mean, in terms of timescales, it might be a lot faster than delivering any of this. What's the point?
Councillor Gordon Trees, you have a question?
I have one question and one concern that I want to ask. The question is, with regards to the access and Reading, do you know if Reading is minded to? Because what do they gain? Because surely they're going to get a lot of objection about the access. So why would they want this?
In terms of what the officer recommendation would be, I don't know with any certainty what that would be. But what we have got is their consultation response that says, on the basis that we secure all of those things, so the visibility display and the financial contributions, they don't object to the scheme. So given that all those matters have been resolved, I would make an assumption that it would be a positive recommendation. Their committee meeting where they talked about the response that they provide to us they did have a discussion around whether the housing would be acceptable on the basis that it's not within their district. And I do recall that the chair did make comments about there being such a strong need for housing that they shouldn't object to the principle. But that's based on my memory of watching what happened at their committee meeting. So no, we haven't got a definite recommendation from them, but based on what I've seen and the response, I would assume it would be a positive recommendation.
Okay. And Chair, may I ask my other concern, please?
Go on then.
Thank you. So I saw all the ecology and BNG mitigation extensions with Barber Stells and dormice, etc. My question is this a request that would be appropriate in this outline application, or is it reserved matters? Because I would, by definition, any disturbance it affects the wildlife, just by definition. But paradoxically opening up the what's untouched and mostly not so open to public access, by definition is going to actually have an impact that's going to be negative. And I would request that our ecology officer really takes that into consideration, because on the one hand, it's great for humans to have all this open access available, which they already do have, but literally by definition of more footfall and more dogs, etc., it is going to have a negative impact. And I would
can we keep these to questions?
Well, the question is, can we request that gets looked at here as a consideration, because it's definitely
you'll have an ecologist report.
But I don't think that's taken into account, is what I'm saying.
Councillor Sutherland, I think you got a question.
Okay. Did you not want me? Okay.
That's all. I don't think that's
all right.
All I was going to say is that we've got one of the conditions does ask for a lighting strategy for mitigation for bats, and we've also got a condition about a management plan for the area to the north. So they're things that we could control in the future.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. So mine was about public transport, because I noticed that Reading Borough Council didn't seem that grow. If I'm honest, I think it was conditional. But I think one of the things I noticed was that it's quite a long walk from the bus anyway, and I think there's only 2 bus routes, and I think the actual timings to other public transport, i.e. Reading Central, where the railway station is, I think it's something like half an hour to 40 minutes. I haven't been to that area at all. I don't know. But it does look like there's some issues there with congestion. There's a lack of a crossing across the River Thames at that point. So all these things are being raised by local objectors who feel that these are quite strong issues. Can you speak about that at all?
In terms of, I suppose all I can say is, I think the extra crossing across the Thames, that's a big issue that I think has been going on for many years. So I wouldn't want to get into that. It's definitely a strategic issue.
But additional housing is going to add to that problem.
It will indeed. Yes, that's very true. I'd say from a highways impact, 70 homes, it will have an impact, but our highways officer at Oxfordshire County Council and Reading Borough Council have both assessed it, and they don't feel that the impact would be significant or would warrant refusal of the application. Having a look at the bus routes, you're right that I think the houses to the far of the site would have, I think it's at 800-metre walk, and we'd rather a 400-metre for homes. But if there's a regular service, and I did think it was pretty regular into Reading, not so much into Kidmore End.
I checked this afternoon, and there was I think it was the last bus at something like 4 o'clock, and it was on a 58-minute delay. So there clearly is some issues there with public transport and things like that. And bearing in mind it is an urban landscape, and if we're saying that another 70 houses need to live up in the north of Reading, they're very much part of Reading and not very much part of the kind of rural environment that we have. But what we don't want to do is approve something that's just going to end up being Reading's problem.
I think in terms of Reading's response, they haven't objected to the application on the basis that we secure this mitigation. And one of the things that they've asked for is contribution towards the bus service. Mm-hmm. So that would help to keep the bus service going, keep it running regularly. So that is something that they haven't raised an objection about in terms of the bus service. And I'm not sure in terms of, I know Reading have their bus services are different colours, and I don't know if it was the pink service that you looked at, because I
don't know. Okay. I got numbers, that was all. But...
Okay, I think the pink services, the Reading services are quite good. I think I'm surprised to hear that service finishes early in the afternoon. Right. I thought there were much later services that go into Reading. But yeah, it is something that Reading Borough Council haven't raised an issue about, and I believe for the existing development on the golf course in Reading, Oxfordshire County Council is our highways authority, and Reading Borough Council, they have their own highways people. They've worked together to spend that money because some of the buses come into Oxfordshire, others are purely in Reading, and we'd have that same agreement with this contribution as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. A couple of points that did come up. How is this going to be managed? And I could say that the requirement is that the developer will create a management company and they will manage that. If it was wholly in South Oxfordshire, we may well consider giving it to the parish council, but that's not an issue here. Or I should say it being given to the parish council for them to manage, but I don't think that's an issue here. So it'll be a management company that will look after it. And it was raised by one of the speakers, wasn't it, about the democracy areas. I chair the Community Governance Committee, and we have a meeting in January. And if we pass this, I will take this issue to the Community Governance Committee to see what solutions we could find. So it may well be that to give it a Reading. May well be. I don't know. I can't say what the answer is, but I will take it to that committee for them to actually look at. Yeah. And that's a matter of talking to Reading, and then that's the next bit on. So I don't know. Councillor Sadler.
For a chair, just for the slowest members of the class. I just want to understand what you just said there, because so that management committee.
Just to say to members of the public, when you speak, the cameras will come to you and not to the committee members. So sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Could you just go over that bit again about the management of the estate?
The situation at the moment is that the developer will create a management company who will look after that green area, and they will have a commitment to look after it under the 106 for probably 30 years. 30 years, yeah.
Yeah, the biodiversity enhancements.
Yeah, 30-year management plan. Yeah. If it was wholly in South Oxfordshire, then the consideration of it being the parish council will be asked if they want to take it on.
Yeah. which is normal for South Oxfordshire, but not necessarily for Reading. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's actually remote from Kidmore End, so I can't see how they would actually want to do that. But
Yeah.
I don't think they've had that conversation.
Chair, may I?
Yes, Scarlett.
Thank you. With regards to that, I know if you take this to committee, EBOUT are wanting to manage sensitive sites like this, and
The lady from Kidmore End said in the presentation that they haven't been spoken to about it. So
no,
yeah,
but I think
so
that
that'll be a
should be a
conversation.
consideration. Yeah, because that's a lot better than some management company who literally are.
Yeah.
killing us.
Sorry, I think Emma wants to say something.
Oh, sorry, just in terms of clarifying, sometimes we in terms of parish councils taking on open space, we usually find that happens with sites that are developed through the neighbourhood plan process. So it will be allocated sites that the parish are working with. In this case, I haven't asked if the parish council would want to take on, say, the play area for the development, because it's very separate from our villages in South Oxfordshire. So to clarify, it would be a management company, and the biodiversity enhancements would have to be managed for 30 years. But as was explained by the speaker earlier, the land would be open in perpetuity.
Also,
Keeps her around. Who would pay for this management?
I mean, we still need to bottom it out in the section 106. We haven't got to a stage where we've got a draft section 106 and worked out all of the details yet. But I'd imagine the management of the space too. There will be different phases, and the biodiversity enhancements they'll be required to be put in at the start of the development, and then I think the proposal would be that the space is left reasonably. It's left for nature to take its course, so it wouldn't be the extra area to the north wouldn't have wouldn't have sort of grass mowing or people needing to come out to look at the whether the play equipment's got any safety issues. So it would be more low key, I think, than the open space that's actually linked to the site. But yeah, at the minute it would be we're looking at a manco
management company.
Yeah, with all the joys that go with that. The poor residents who end up paying for years and years, prices going up all the time, they really love it. I mean, it does seem to me, and I don't know quite how to put this into a question, that there's a lot of assumptions in this that, you know, we'll shove these houses on this piece of South Oxfordshire land, and then it's essentially Reading's problem. I mean, they've got the buses, and yet if you actually look, I mean, I went into.
That's really just a question for.
I'm actually saying, I think there may be a danger. I'll leave it for debate, but I think there's really quite a few issues that this brings up. I'll leave it for debate.
Yes, Councillor Arnold's got already.
I may be able to help here. Highlands Park in Henley, which is being built by Crest Homes. As soon as it's built out, the management committee then becomes the owners of the properties. They take over the management committee and run all the areas inside the boundary of the Highlands Park.
I think that's got to be worked through yet. There's no answer to that. Yeah, this has got to be worked through. It'll be part of the 106 agreement to flatten it out, to control it. But I don't think we know exactly what it will be. Yeah. Can we move on? Yeah, we need to move on to some debate. I need a proposal to instigate debate. Councillor Norman.
I would like to propose that we refuse the application.
On the grounds of?
Shall I speak in full now then?
Yes, we
need to know what the grounds are, and your seconder will probably need to know what the grounds are.
The grounds would be that the grounds are that it doesn't overcome the objections of paragraph 14, which is a matter of judgment, and in my view that it does not achieve that high bar of paragraph 14, which prevents which aims to reduces the opportunities for development that is not plan led.
So because it's not in accordance with the neighbourhood plan and it's not in accordance with the
local plan.
With the
So
local
it's
plan.
so it's not in accordance with the development plan. I mean, that has all been fully gone into by the very comprehensive report, a model report, which is very even-handed. But ultimately, it comes down to whether paragraph 14 can be overcome by the advantages outweighing the disadvantages, and in my view, they do not. So the objection is that it does not conform to the development plan.
Okay, I've got just got to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Emily wants to come in on
Yes,
that. Yeah.
thank you, Councillor. Can I just, so in terms of paragraph 14, which you're saying, could you just identify the areas of harm that you think in terms of the balance that you're particularly concerned about?
Is it? Do you want to do it at this stage? If there's no seconder, then my proposal falls down anyway. So,
Yeah,
but I'm happy to answer that question.
yeah. Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Okay, I have a seconder. Councillor keeps rolling. We'll need to find out exactly what the objections are before we can debate it, I think.
Well, I don't have to produce objections. So the paragraph 14 says the adverse impact of allowing development that conflicts with the neighbourhood plan is likely to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. So it is for the committee to weigh up. It's for the officer to look at the benefits and harms, and that's been done very thoroughly. And I have to say this is very much in the balance. But the benefits have to significantly and demonstrably be greater than the harms. So
And just, Councillor, in terms of the harms, is it landscape? I'm just looking for the specifics so that we can identify that. So
okay.
Yeah.
So does the harm? So are we allowed to have the fact that it conflicts with the development plan as a harm?
That would form part of your refusal reason. And what I'm just trying to extract from you is it landscape harm you're concerned about? Is it what aspects that you wouldn't want included in a refusal reason? So you're saying to start with that it's not in accordance with the neighbourhood plan. Is that your only area of harm or concern, or are you saying that the harm comes from the impact on the landscape or the character of the area?
It comes from there are, as you know, a very long string of objections from basically everyone, and I'm in agreement with a lot of those objections. So if you want me to start listing some,
I think we'll try to move on and see which support you've got, because Councillor Keats Rowan needs to second it. You wish to speak now or wait?
I'll wait, but I can chuck in. I think that we're talking about landscape, ecology, and over-reliance on already overstretched Reading facilities. A lot of the objections point to the fact that their infrastructure is already overloaded in terms of healthcare and all the rest of it. This isn't going to do anything for it. This site is controversial anyway, and it hasn't been supported by Reading Borough Council in the past. It itself has an adequate land supply, so we're not, I mean, essentially we're doing a disfavour to Reading without any obvious benefit that I can see to ourselves. This is a greenfield site that will be lost in an area. I mean, apparently, according to the what's happened before, the original plan for the site was rejected. What is being agreed to be built up there is in excess of what was originally planned. It's over development, and I'll say it's an environmental and ecological thing. It seems to me. Plus the the fact that, you know, we're casually saying, well, it's all right, you can walk twice the distance that we ideally like to get a bus that may or may not come on time or actually even be there. Plus, you know, join the queue for the local surgery. I mean, the RBH, the Royal Berkshire Hospital is under pressure. I mean, you know, I think overdevelopment is a word that comes to mind to me anyway.
Okay. I have a proposal and seconded. It's on for debate. That's right.
Yes, Chairman, having heard all the information come forward, I have a totally different view. And I wouldn't imagine this is Greenfield. This has been a golf course as far as I can remember. And I've played there a few times as well. So I would suggest it's probably more grey than green, but obviously be interested in what the officers think for that. I don't believe it is open countryside. If you've got land abutted to a housing site, I'm not sure how you could class that as open countryside. Well, I wouldn't do anyway. But I think the gain in it is, you know, those of us that walk the site, it's a fairly flat site up there, which is obviously good for building, good for housing. So I didn't see no problem with that. The developer's going to give 11 acres of open landscape land, a few wooded areas, three wooded areas, which will there be forever. So that has to be a gain to anybody wishing to walk there again. I just don't see the point. We had similar at Highlands Park in Henley. We drifted in from Henley into Harpston a wee bit, and in the end we just moved the boundary, and it was no loss to Harpston. And I can't see this piece of land there would be any loss whatsoever to Kidmore End. And I think to add the numbers, the 70 houses to our 5-year land supply, otherwise we're going to get worse applications going to come forward to try and make that number up. And I don't see where we're going to gain by turning this application down. I really don't. I don't think there's any gain for SODC whatsoever.
Councillor Topping.
I will also be supporting the officer's recommendation here, and just really adding to the points that have already been made. Unlike the lovely photographs that were taken in the summer, we were there on Monday in rain at a time when the leaves on the trees in the woodland were gone, and Cucumber Wood provides an incredible block of the visibility of this site. It's uniquely hidden from all directions other than from the existing and being built housing. The housing site to the south, I would say, is 90% complete now. And so this is a natural follow-on site to that site. To the south, obviously, the implementation of this site relies on Reading also approving it, which I believe they probably will. I think that this site and the development of this site and the benefits of the open space that will flow from this, and the fact that this development is within an area that is no further north than the surrounding parts of Reading to both the east and the west, means that the effective gap between this development and our villages is not compromised by developing here. And it's only when you go there that you can realise that it really is invisible from Kidmore End Road, but also from Tanner's Lane to the north. You really can't see it. Cucumber Wood hides it beautifully. And for those reasons, I believe that, you know, if we have to have housing, and we do, not least because of our lack of a 5-year supply, this is an extremely good place to put it. And for that reason, I'll be supporting it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Topping. Councillor Ross.
Yeah, I think this is a very difficult one because clearly the proposal, paragraph 14 of the NPPF applies here. So we have to be satisfied that the benefits of the scheme significantly and demonstrably outweigh the harms. And I can see benefit to this scheme insofar as there will be, apparently, the provision of some open green space for use by the public, where currently there is no official ability for the public to use that space. It's effectively trespass, I suppose, which has been allowed. But on the other hand, we've got the importance of the fact that this is contrary to policy. It's not infill. It is in open countryside. It does reduce the separation of settlements. And I am concerned that allowing developments like this in contravention of policy causes real harm to the integrity of the planning system. And it is yet another kick in the teeth to communities like tiny little Kidmore End that spent 4 years creating a neighbourhood plan and having it passed by the inspectors. And that neighbourhood plan carries full weight. So not only is this site not included in their neighbourhood plan, but they have actively designated it as a local valued landscape. And that designation was upheld by the planning inspectorate when they examined that neighbourhood plan and endorsed it, and it's now been made. So I think that we really do play with fire, I think, and it's sending a very damaging message to our communities, I think, when we are contravening policy and permitting this type of development that is contrary to policy. And under paragraph 14 of the NPPF, we are supposed to be giving great weight to the neighbourhood plan. And I'm not entirely satisfied that the benefits of the scheme, it's a small scheme with 28 affordable houses, yes. Will it be delivered in time? Some say yes, some say no. I'm not sure. Will it make a big dent in our 5-year housing land supply? Not really, 10%. And does that outweigh the harm, the very real harm, not only to the countryside and the landscape, but also to the integrity of the planning system? I'm not sure it does.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rob. Councillor Gordon-Creed.
Well, I'd firstly like to say that, you know, if we were Reading Council sitting here with this coming to us, there would probably be, you know, very little issues, but we're not. As an application that's come to South Oxfordshire for Little Kidmore End, I do want to commend Emma. You know, you've done the absolute utmost best that you possibly could with this application. But I agree with Councillor Rob here that it is against policy, and we were the people who encouraged these villages to create their neighbourhood plans. It's blood, sweat and tears and volunteer hours beyond belief to get them through. And yeah, what message are we saying if we do that? Now that the government inspector has changed their view on our JLP, and our JLP will stand, our housing land supply need will be taken care of. This is not going to make a difference. There's 70 houses, and I think the harm in this case definitely outweighs the benefit, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sutherland.
I'll try and be really quick. There was a whole lot of objections from Sonning Common Council, Caversham Council, Reading Borough Council, who made comments, but they weren't good comments. There was a whole load of comments from individuals about the housing need, about the settlement boundary, about national landscapes, the fact it's a greenfield site at the moment, the fact that there potentially is an archaeological site as well. The fact that it is actually a green corridor in what is otherwise a built-up area, and that's, you know, it sounds very easy just to say, well, let's just square that bit off there and make that all built-up area, but that is taking away from Reading what you know, a suitable green space. From where we sit up in Chinner, actually it's quite a long way from us, and you know, it does seem like a reasonable extension to Reading, but when you start looking into it and start realizing what they're proposing, it doesn't really sit well with me. So I was very much on the fence with it when I came, and you know, I'm starting to be pro the motion. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. The next move is to go back to Councillor Norman to sort. Sorry. Yeah, but before I do that, I think Emily needs to actually bottom out exactly what the reasons are for refusal.
Yes, so just listening to the debate, I think there are three areas or three refusal reasons. And I just want to check that you are comfortable with this. The first one I'm hearing is that the development is not in accordance with the development plan policies. It's an unallocated site, both within SALT and a neighbourhood plan. It's not infill and it reduces separation of the settlements, and this is contrary to the NPPF and development plan policies. The second refusal reason would be that having regard to the landscape setting, this development would be detrimental to the character of the area, again, contrary to development plan policies. And I think the third one that seems to be picked up is that around sort of this sustainable location, that having regard to the distance from the bus stops, this development is not considered to be a sustainable location. Is that an accurate reflection? And Councillor, given you moved the motion, is that?
I'm very happy with all of those reasons. Is there a?
Thank you, Emily. I'll come back then to Councillor Norman to sum up, and then we'll go for a vote.
Thank you. Is there a? So we talk a lot about landscape, as it were, the visual aspect. Does the and this is a question. Does the loss of countryside itself come into the planning system? And again, within the Chilterns National Landscape, we have a great many rules about the landscape as sort of seen by humans. But is there in fact a provision that protects countryside from development? Oh, sorry, within the planning system, does countryside have a validity of its own, just for existing? That is nature rather than human occupation.
Yes, what I suggested for that second refusal reason is looking at the harm. And from what was said, it was you're sort of giving value to this, to the surrounding landscape and this site, and therefore you're saying that development here would be detrimental to the character of that area. I think that's your strongest case around landscape to have.
Okay.
And given the value and the assessment that was undertaken in the neighbourhood plan, relying on that evidence base would form part of that refusal reason.
Good. Yes, I'm happy with that. More than happy. I'm satisfied with that.
Are you going to sum up, or have you summed up?
I more or less have summed up. I think I'd just like to come back on Councillor Arlett's point that because it's next to a town, it's therefore not open countryside. I mean, that does seem to me a pretty weak argument. That anything which is next to a town is therefore not open countryside. I mean, that would just be like opening the gates to any development anywhere that happens to be next to a town. So this is open countryside to the north. It's town to the south. I think my main point would only really be to reiterate what Councillor Rob very comprehensively explained about the conflict with the development plan and the undermining of the whole process of parishes making neighbourhood plans, which we encourage them to do, we support them to do. They spend a long time doing it, and then we seem to get presented with quite a lot of applications where the neighbourhood plan is being overruled for benefits that are more for us than they are for that parish. I think that covers it.
Thank you very much.
And just going to sum up, because we've been very helpfully provided in a letter from Gidmore End, which says that a statement from the minister in the last week says the plan-led approach is and must remain the cornerstone of our planning system. So I'm suggesting that we uphold the plan-led approach.
That's the plan, isn't it? Okay, we have a proposal for refusal based on those reasons. And all those in favour of the proposal can please show. 5. And all those against the proposal please show. It's 4. Therefore the proposal is carried. Second. I think it was on balance, and therefore the balance is this way. Right, it's 20 past 7. Is it 20 past 7?
It's 25 past 7.
It's 25 past 7. I'll close a 5-minute break.
Susie, please stop broadcast.
Well, it's on the arc. I'm reading it. Okay, thank you. So the next planning application is at Lucy's Palm Farms in Harpston. The planning officer is Victoria Clark. Victoria, can you take this, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm Victoria Clark, the case officer for this application. The application is referred to Planning Committee because the officer's recommendation to approve the application conflicts with the views of Harpston Parish Council. The application seeks to vary the plans of a previously approved application, which was for the demolition of existing farmyard buildings and erection of a single building comprising 3 dwellings. The development was commenced earlier this year and the building is already substantially complete. This application seeks to regularise a number of minor changes to the external appearance of the approved building. No changes are proposed to the size or siting of the approved building, nor to the amount of internal living accommodation being provided in the proposed dwellings. The main change to the approved plans is the increase in the amount of brickwork used in place of timber cladding on the front and side elevations of the building. In addition, the application seeks to remove 3 ground floor windows and insert 3 first floor roof lights on the side elevations and a flue on the front elevation. Officers acknowledge concerns of the parish council in relation to change in materials used and the amount of visible brickwork. The proposed prominence of the brick piers, larger expanse of brickwork and reduction in timber cladding does change the visual appearance of the building, but in a relatively minor way. The building still maintains a general barn-like appearance that is in keeping with the original approval and is sympathetic to the semi-rural and agricultural character of the site and the surrounding area. Officers consider that proposed changes to the plans would not justify the refusal of the application on design grounds. The proposed roof light windows would be positioned on the side elevations of the properties. However, the distances between roof lights and neighbouring properties is sufficient to prevent any significant overlooking. Officers consider the proposal complies with the relevant policies and subject to recommended conditions would be acceptable. The application is therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you, Victoria. I have 2 speakers on this one. So the first speaker is Catherine Rubinstein from Harpston Parish Council. Oh, she's on team, sorry.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me, see me, whatever?
I can hear you. I can hear you, can't see you.
Okay, hold on a minute. Let me have another go.
Can now see you.
Okay.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Right. Well, I'm on Harpston Parish Council, and I also live immediately opposite the site, so I'm speaking on behalf of both the parish council and the immediate neighbours. If you look at this on paper, I can see that the changes that are being suggested look pretty minor, and I can understand how you would see it that way. But if you visit the site, it isn't. It's really quite significant. I mean, even if you drive past along the road, you wouldn't be able to see because the boards are covering the lower part of the building. The problem is the increased amount of brick, more brick, less wood, which makes it much more urban in its ambiance and much more domineering. It's just not suited to this location. We're talking about the front facade and the east elevation. We're not quibbling with the back or with the change in the windows. The approved version was basically a barn-like, predominantly wooden building, and this has reduced the wood to the extent that it's effectively just decorative panels. And the drawings don't really quite capture the extent. I think you may have caught a bit of it on those photos, but they zoomed past a bit quickly. I wasn't sure if it did, but anyway, it's important, we feel, for a number of reasons. It's a very central location in the middle of a small village, so it's very conspicuous. It's by far the biggest residential building in the main village. It's very visually dominant and bulky. It's the site of a historic barn. There's been a barn there since the 16th century, and it's got agricultural land on one side, National Landscape, on the other. So it's yes, it's at a village, but it's right at the edge of the village. It's a rural location. And in that situation, appearance matters. It's not suitable for a brick urban looking building like that. And a lot of effort went into the approved version to ensure that it did look as barn-like as possible. And that is part of the problem we have with it. It's the process this has taken as much as the actual design. They're both important. Because the approved version, this is not the first version, this is the 4th or 5th version that has gone in. And the agreed version that was finally approved is the result of a long series of negotiations and compromise. And it really represents, as far as the community, the community had gone as far as it could go in reaching that compromise. Because the purpose for us was to make it barn-like, and the developer was resisting that in many ways. So if you now approve further changes, what was the point of the compromise in the first place? It kind of makes a nonsense of the planning process. Planning permission is not a starting point from which to have a carte blanche to put your own interpretation on something. It's what's agreed. And we feel that we and you have an obligation to the electorate to make sure that things don't go that way. So that's the essence of it. It's the fact that it is so the wood reduced so much, and you can see particularly on the lower wall, there's a huge chunk of wood of brick there, which was not there in the original plans, and it does not look barn-like. It's a token gesture towards being a barn. So it's partly the look of it and partly the way it's got there, that it's a wish to reinstate whatever they fancied doing, regardless of the negotiation and agreement that had got to the approved plan. So we're not asking for a lot. We would just like them to cover more of the brick with wood, which is something they could easily do. Why? There's no need for it to be brick. But, if they did that aesthetically and democratically, it's important in a small village. That's the essence of what I've got to say.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Committee, have we got any questions? Councillor Arlott?
Yes, that's the two rooms. How are you? You started your talk by saying that the changes were, I think the word you used was very minor, and then you tried to elaborate on those. I did actually go down to the site on Sunday and have a look at it.
Did you go in, or did you just walk on?
Can I finish? Okay. And I totally agree with you. The changes are unbelievably minor. Personally, I don't know why this has come across to this committee this evening, but there we go. This is the way things work. But there's still going to be a large amount of black, either timber or similar shiplap on that building, both on the two gables and on the front. So my question to you, having read the information here, and the builder's concerned that if he puts the timber right the way through the front of the building and a fire was to start and go from one property to the other, and just say someone was killed, would you feel that you'd be accountable to that?
No.
Thank you.
I think that's a very far-fetched scenario. I don't think. I mean, there is brick inside. There's, we're talking about the outside. We're not talking about. You're talking about the ground floor on the outside. You're not talking about anything like a high-rise building or anything like that. It's a completely different kettle of fish.
Okay, there are no Councillor Corden-Creed, got a question.
So in terms of the facade,
yes,
the amount of new brickwork relative to what there was, that's essentially the front. That's what you're objecting to. Is that right?
The front and the end.
I'll have some question for the officer at some point, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. We'll move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Adrian Gould, who's the planning agent.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the committee.
Just to turn the camera off, please.
Sorry.
Ms. Rubenstein, could you turn the camera off, please? No, she's gone. Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Gould,
Chairman.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Your
Chairman.
5 minutes starts from when you start speaking.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the committee. Good evening to you. As you heard, this Section 73 application seeks permission for material amendments to the previously approved scheme for the redevelopment of the site to create 3 new homes in a single building. The development is being undertaken by Jamie Smith, who, as many of you will be already aware, is a local developer whose houses in and around Henley are expertly crafted and detailed in architectural terms. And in 25 years in the private sector, I can honestly say that I haven't worked with anybody else who consistently delivers such high quality buildings. Construction work at the site began earlier this year, and they're now well advanced, as anybody who's been past recently will know. They're not complete. The external timber cladding is still to be added, and hard and soft landscaping is going to be undertaken, obviously, as a last stage of development. That will raise the levels of around the base of the building up by 3 to 350 mil relative to what they are at the present time. Although it's not finished, the development, I think it's fair to say that the works are already having a positive and transformative effect when compared with the dilapidated buildings that were in situ previously. And I have absolutely no doubt that the new building, once it's complete and the hoardings are removed and the landscaping is undertaken, is going to be a significant enhancement, both in design quality and interest terms at this part of the village, at this end of the village for the longer term. As the officer's report states, and as has been repeated tonight, the changes are external alterations only. And I think that's important to note, that there have been no changes made to the size or the siting of the building or to the amount of living accommodation, i.e. the value of the building. And there's no changes internally to any of the 3 new houses. The principal change relates to the provision of additional brick columns on the roadside elevation. These columns were introduced during the construction stage by my clients in order to ensure, having regard to building regs fire safety guidance, that there are effective breaks between the areas of external timber cladding on the frontage, so as to help retard the spread of fire from unit to unit across the frontage. Although the construction of the pillars has added time and cost to the build, my client felt they were absolutely necessary and justified from a responsible development perspective and from a safety standpoint. More relevantly, perhaps, it's considered that the provision of the brick pillars does not harm the design quality of the new building, given the excellent workmanship and high quality materials that are in evidence. The application also seeks to regularise a few other minor changes relating to fenestration and the position of flues, as the officer's report sets out, which in equity. And I don't even think that, from what the parish council has said, they don't believe they result in harm to the overall character appearance of the building or to the amenities of neighbours. Overall, therefore, the amendments to the approved scheme are considered to be consistent with relevant design guidance in the NPPF, the South Oxfordshire Local Plan, and the Joint Henley and Harpston Neighbourhood Plan. And it's hoped, therefore, that members will feel able to support the officer's recommendation to grant permission. Just as a final point, I'm fully aware from my time coming to committees that instinctively members of planning committees don't warm to retrospective applications. And I think that's on the basis that all too often those sorts of applications are seeking permission for larger buildings or for changes to the design, the materials or the detailing that have stemmed from cost cutting on the developer's part. As I've already mentioned, neither of those factors are relevant to the current proposal. And therefore, I hope that members will be happy to allow the development to proceed to completion as per the current drawings. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cool.
Thank you.
30 seconds left. Questions? Any questions for Mr. Cool? Councillor Arlott.
Yeah, Councillor Rubenstein mentioned about the brick piers at the front and how there were 8 new brick piers. But when you look at the approved against the proposed, either end there's a brick pier. There's a garage with 2 brick piers there. I'm not sure there's another one, or that's a downpipe there, but okay, there may be 4 extra ones, but there's definitely not 8. Would you accept that?
Well, that's absolutely. There already were brick pillars within integral to the design, so it's not an entirely new feature. And yeah, the other ones are strategically positioned, and also they're positioned to give symmetry to the appearance of the frontage as well. So they are additional, but they're not new to the scheme.
Sorry. And would you accept, and I was a builder for a few years, would you accept that, architects put some lovely lines on papers, on plans, but sometimes when you're building, they don't work out and you have to make changes. And it seems to me this is what's happened here. The original plans, elevations, etc. Yeah, they look very nice on paper, but if the builder can't build to those plans, you have to make changes.
Yeah, I mean, certainly changes to a scheme on I'd say it happens in the vast number of proposals that you see. In this particular instance, I think when looking at the practicalities of building the scheme post permission, it became evident to my client that he had a responsibility to future occupiers that was of paramount importance to him, to make sure that the brick pillars won't stop fire from spreading, but it would give more time should there be a fire across the frontage. And it's something that's very important too. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that from a mortgage perspective, having buildings that aren't compartmentalised would make it very difficult in the future for occupiers to get insurance for their properties.
I've got Councillor Gordon Green.
Thank you, and thank you for explaining. So just for clarity, those brick pillars were added primarily to comply with fire regs, or to help with the fire regulation element.
Yeah.
Was a width designated for them, or was that a design decision?
The honest answer is I don't know. What I do know is they've been very well detailed. I don't know if you've got any of the photographs up close, but the actual brickwork detailing around there and underneath the eaves is very good. Not sure that's there, unfortunately, because of the hoarding, you can't get a head-on view of it at the moment. But so I don't think there was a set the size they had to be, but it was to give rhythm to the frontage as well.
Yeah, that's a topic. So I'll come back to you, John.
I was going to ask a question about the elevation drawing. The top one, the approved. That's it. Yeah, the approved one appears to have a large door, and like a double door, where right in the middle there's a single person there, and to the left of that there's the car. Is that a door that's now been taken off in the proposed?
It isn't actually.
What is that?
So that's common to both schemes. That's a set of double doors which will effectively hide that parking area, which is integral. So there's a parking undercroft essentially there.
So that will be there on the proposal.
It will be,
but it's not shown on the drawing.
No, the reason we did that was to show the full extent. So there is another drawing which shows both the approved scheme and the proposed scheme without the double doors, just so we're comparing apples and apples.
Right. Yeah, that
will be what you see on the approved scheme is still very much part of the current proposal to have those doors, which will obscure then.
The closed door does help make it look barn-like.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And when something that I've been involved with such works in the past, and keeping and retaining the doors is actually quite an important.
No, and I agree entirely on that. That just to be clear, that is still part of the scheme.
Councillor Rob, you have a question?
Yes, please. It relates to the southern elevation, so the elevation that overlooks the road.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we could see the photos of the build as it currently is from the southern. Oh, could we go back in so we can see, Victoria, if we could see the previous photo where you can see the brick skirting? Okay. And is there another photo that illustrates the brick skirting? Because, is that the southern elevation?
Yes.
Thank you. So, Adrian, I wonder, I mean, it looks to me, look, I think the actual detail is beautiful. I mean, I don't think we've ever had a scheme that's this nice in terms of the detail that's gone into it. But the brick skirt appears to my eyes to be significantly higher than the brick skirt that's in this proposal that we've got before us.
Yeah, this basically what we've got to recall is that the ground levels, so the landscaping ground levels will be up to the threshold of the entrances. So it's just that we're not.
So some of that brick will be covered by landscaping.
Exactly that. So genuinely the latest set of drawings is what you'll actually see rather than what you see at the moment, which is more reveal of the brickwork.
Got it. Because I saw that I did.
If I can just comment on you see more brickwork at the top. There's this flattened brickwork. You can see it. Can I point to the screen?
I know what you mean. It's lovely though.
So, but this here, it looks like there's more brickwork, but that is all going to be boarded over as such. So the brickwork is actually at this higher level, not what. So again, what you see at the present time is more brickwork than you would actually see when the building's completed.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a follow-up, please, Chair, very quickly?
Yes.
And then we've got the elevations at the east and the west.
Yeah.
With the triangles.
Yeah.
Are they windows? Big triangles? What are these big white triangles?
Sorry, they're sections. So on the bottom, on page 73, they're just sections through the building. That's
gotcha.
I know that would be. I would agree that would be out of keeping.
A big triangle. No, okay, fine. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Gould.
Thank you very much.
Has anybody got any questions of the planning officer?
I have one.
Councillor Craig.
So on the on the original approved on the, I guess it's the south end, but the end which is now literally looks like a brick building. If you go back to the
gable end.
The gable end. So
the pictures, I think.
The actual picture. So are those
not that one.
That one, yeah. So is that what was originally approved?
No, that's the rear. So that's the rear of the site. So that's the rear.
Okay.
Can we see the western gable?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that?
That's the western gable.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right. Yeah. If there's no more questions, we'll move on if we can.
Is that going to have wood on it? Timber?
Where it's grey, we'll have wood.
Yeah.
No more questions, I'll move on. Looking for a proposal.
I will be voting to support this, the officer's recommendation. I think it's a really good scheme. I think it's fantastic quality. I don't think it's right to say that all barns from the 17th, 18th or even 19th century were covered in wood. You've only got to go to Cholsey, which is in my patch, and see the collection of fantastic looking brick built barns. This is a superb quality development, and I think we should be supporting it. And I don't see any downside in the changes that have been made. In fact, I see an upside if this makes it less likely that a fire can take the whole building. So for that reason, 100% support.
Thank you, Councillor Topping. Is that seconded? Seconded by Councillor Arlott. To speak now, Ken.
I don't want to waste anybody's time, Chair.
Okay. We'll come back to you if you need to. Is there any debate? Councillor Arlott.
I just want to say one thing for the record, and that is that I think the speaker in favour was absolutely right about retrospectives causing a bit of suspicion. And I think, I think to be fair, this is an excellent project, and I think it stands up very well. But it is difficult when things change and then they sort of come into being, and then there's a Section 73 that puts us in a very difficult position. And I'm so glad that you acknowledged that. So that's what we've got to say on that, Chair.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I think things happen. This is one of those, it happens. Things have to change, and that's why it's here. No, it's not here because of that. It's here because they. Shut up. Right, so I'll go back to the seconder. Do you wish to speak now or not? No, go back to the proposer. Do you wish to speak?
So just say please support this.
Yeah, okay, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Right, we'll move swiftly on. Actually, I've got to go to the window. I'm sure the public should know that.
Susie, please can you pause the broadcast? Hi Susie, we're ready to start again when you're ready.
Okay, we're now going to Woodcote and the planning officer to compliance. Welcome, Tom. Thank you, Chair.
The application site forms part of the large rear garden of byways. The site is located within the main built-up area of Woodcote, where the principle of new housing development is acceptable, having regard to the development plan, which includes the Woodcote Neighbourhood Plan. Policy H10 of the Neighbourhood Plan specifically allows for backland infill development, subject to criteria listed in the policy. The proposal is for a two-storey, two-bedroom dwelling within the large rear garden of the existing house. The site would be served by the existing access and drive off Beach Lane, which would be extended into the site through the demolition of the existing garage serving the host dwelling. The dwelling has been positioned within the plot to address technical issues in relation to the provision of parking and turning space, and to allow for sufficient separation from the root protection areas of off-site trees. The dwelling has been designed to respect the scale and appearance of surrounding development, and to ensure that the dwelling would not adversely affect neighbouring amenity in terms of loss of privacy, light or outlook. Some photos, go through some photos now. So this is taken from Beach Lane. The host dwelling is the one on the left here. The new dwelling on the centre of the picture was allowed, granted permission in 2016. This is the driveway of the application site. So see, that would serve both the existing and proposed dwelling. That's just looking sort of like the driveway bit, and the garage you see in the middle there would be demolished to make way for the access into the back of the site. These photos are taken from the land to the west. So this is an existing backland development which is already in place. So the house on the left was allowed in 2016. The houses further back into this part of the site were allowed in 2007. So the application site here is behind that evergreen hedge, just in the middle of the photo. Again, just looking back from the development in depth, sort of the new house in 2016, just in the forefront there. The application site is just on the right-hand side of the photo behind the hedge. That's the garage that will be demolished to make way for the access. So this is inside the site now. So this is looking towards the rear of the site. Very large rear garden. With the access would just come in and parking area, turning area where the greenhouse is there. This is looking again towards the rear of the site, and some off-site trees, and these trees are in the neighbouring garden. This is just looking at the back of the existing property, and the garage again on the left-hand side, which would be demolished for the access. And again. So your officers consider that the development would accord with the development plan as a whole in terms of providing a new dwelling in a sustainable location with sufficient highway access and parking, and ensuring that it is in keeping with the grain and character of the surrounding built form, and that it does not harm the amenities of adjoining occupiers. Furthermore, there are no technical objections to the application, and as such, the application is recommended for approval as set out in the report.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, I have a number of speakers. The first one is Councillor Kevin Byrne, who's online. Kevin, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you and I can see you. So you've got 5 minutes when you start speaking.
Okay, thank you for letting me speak to you. I represent Woodcote Parish Council and the residents of Woodcote. I just want to refer you firstly to paragraph 7.2 of Mr. Wyatt's report to you, and the final sentence in that, which says as follows: in my view, the proposed layout is consistent with the existing pattern of development in the immediate surrounding area and is compliant with policy H1 of SOLP and policy H10 of the Woodcote Neighbouring Plan, which allow backland and infill development. It's curious that Mr. Wyatt, knowing that this has been referred to the committee because we objected principally on the ground of access to the rear of the property, doesn't seem to give any reasons for departing from that of the parish council. Can I just refer you to what actually H10 says? And I was greatly fortified to hear such positive reference made earlier to the need to not be seen to be departing from neighbourhood plan and planning policy. Backland development, our policy reads, is the residential development of land behind an existing frontage or placing of further dwellings behind existing dwelling, which fits this case, and will be supported where the development meets all the relevant requirements set out in other policies in this plan and the local plan, and where such development, and this is the nub of the objection, provides suitable access to the rear properties that is wide enough and far enough from the boundary and any front property to accommodate delivery, service, and in particular, that's my emphasis, emergency vehicles without unnecessary disturbance to neighbours at the front of the property. We look then to the building regulations and forgive me while I find the relevant document. Regulation 4 says that building work shall be carried out so that it complies with the applicable requirements contained in Schedule 1. And Schedule 1, paragraph B5, subparagraph 2, says that reasonable provision shall be made within the site of the building to enable fire appliances to gain access to the building. This is at the nub of our main concern, that we can't be certain, and we've asked the applicant to confirm with the fire officer if they would be satisfied that access is sufficient. When we look at the plan, and this was contained in our second objection in an email from our parish clerk on the 30th of January this year, we measured the length of the driveway to the point where it ends at the boundary with the existing building boundaries, or the proposed new boundary, of 43.75 metres, and the narrowest width was 2.75 metres. We look then to the manual for streets, and that puts some flesh on the bones of the regulation that I referred you to. And that says that there should be, I'm having trouble in enlarging it, if you just bear with me, there should be a minimum carriage width of 3.7 metres between the curbs. You'll note on the photograph that...
You've 20 seconds left.
Okay. There should be vehicle access for a pump appliance within 45 metres of every dwelling, and vehicle access routes, maybe a road or other route, so a driveway, for instance. So our principal concern is, can a fire engine get there when it needs to? Having invited the applicant to clarify that, they've clarified the ecology, they've clarified the trees, and we're greatly encouraged by that, and the rest of the application too. But it's this particular thing that is the sticking point for the council.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Byrne. Committee, any questions? Councillor Arlott?
Yeah, just looking at the plan, showing that proposed track road that will lead to the proposed new building. When you look at the property next door, Green Acre, surely you have a similar problem there if it is a problem. Bramley is already built at the back there. I can't quite see the difference between either of them.
No, I think it's the width that is concerning us, because fire tenders, as you know, are quite wide vehicles. And the last thing that needs to happen is they get stuck partway up the drive and can't attend to the fire. If you look at the photograph that your officer showed you of the neighbouring property, it's a very generous driveway, and would readily admit a fire tender.
Okay, Councillor Topping.
Yeah, I have a question. Does anybody know how long the hose reels are on fire tenders? Because clearly you don't have to put the fire tender next to the building. In many occasions you can't do that for whatever reason. But they do have a great deal of length, as I understand it, on fire tenders, such that they can access buildings that don't have a road.
I think Mr. Byrne referred to that.
Running outside.
You got an answer to that, Mr. Byrne?
Yes, it's the Association of Chief Fire Officers, which talks of the 45-metre length. So presumably the tenders carry hoses sufficient to cover that eventuality.
Yes. So that would be more than enough.
Well, it goes, the 43.75 goes to the boundary. It doesn't go to the house itself, which is a bit beyond that, more like 48 metres.
Yes, so the vehicle could come partially up the drive, stop, and then put its hoses up the rest of the if it wasn't able to turn around within the site, it wouldn't. It would simply drive up there, put its hoses out, and then reverse out.
Can we restrict these to questions, not debate, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you very much, Councillor Byrne.
Thank you. Do I mute myself now? Take the camera off.
Yeah, take your camera off, please.
Okay.
Our next speaker is David Wilson, who's a neighbour who's objecting. He's online as well. Hello, Mr. Wilson.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. You have 5 minutes when you start speaking.
Thank you very much. Yes, as you say, I'm a resident of one of the houses adjoining the application site, and I speak on behalf of a number of the other adjoining residents who have objected to the planning application but can't attend today. I sent a letter outlining my concerns to the committee members, which I hope you have seen, in addition to all of our objection letters, which set out all of our concerns in full. In summary, I acknowledge that the council is under pressure to allow development within existing villages like Woodcote, and some infill backland plots have been approved in Woodcote, but the current proposals are materially different and do not represent a suitable backland plot, and its approval would have a detrimental impact on the open wooded character of Beech Lane and would not have a safe access, which is contrary to the adopted development plan policy. Woodcote Parish Council have helpfully confirmed that the application does not accord with the recently adopted Woodcote Neighbourhood Plan 2024, and in particular policy H10 in relation to backland infill. The officer's report states the contrary. The proposal is in line with policy H10, but gives little reasoning to support this conclusion. The officer's main reason appears to be that the immediate, in quotes, the immediate locality includes recent examples of dwellings built to the rear of houses fronting Beech Lane. I consider this to be misleading, as this part of Beech Lane largely retains its original character of large dwellings on large plots. I believe the example the officer is referring to, as mentioned in speech, relates to the properties known as Bramley and Littleacre, which were built to the rear of Rackley and Greenacre. But these were not built on a rear garden plot, but to the contrary, were built on a separate paddock plot to the rear of the existing residential properties. And crucially, as pointed out by the parish councillor, they have a suitable access drive. Also, these two properties were approved in August 2007, which is way before the preparation and adoption of the current neighbourhood plan. The proposed dwelling is also not closely surrounded by other buildings, as stated in the officer's report, as illustrated on the photographs in my letters, which are far more up to date than those used in the presentation. The photographs used in the presentation are of when the house was first built over 5.5 years ago. The proposals will have a negative impact on the character of Beech Lane and the Chilterns national landscape, and would set an unwelcome precedent. The immediate surroundings to the site are characterised by mature trees and woodland, large gardens, and a variety of styles of dwellings which front onto Beech Lane. The proposed new dwelling within the rear garden of Byways is not in keeping with this character and the surrounding area, and would appear as an isolated dwelling in an important open space next to an existing woodland area. As shown on the photographs in my letter, it does therefore detrimentally impact the national landscape and is contrary to local plan policy ENV, landscape and countryside. The proposed dwelling's rear garden was also be heavily overshadowed by the mature trees woodland, as the dwelling would be located to the north, which would lead to future pressure to remove these trees, further impacting the character of the area and the national landscape, and also important wildlife habitat. The proposal does not accord with the council's own pre-application advice, and the officer's report does not explain why. It doesn't even mention what was stated in the application advice. In particular, the proposed new dwelling's access, which utilises the existing byways access, was not supported in the pre-application advice, which states, further, the proposed layout includes the creation of a long and narrow drive, approximately 45 metres long, to the northwest of the proposed dwelling. In line with policy H4, I consider this arrangement to be largely unsatisfactory, as the single track access is likely to create difficulties of access for public services, emergency vehicles and traders to the house at the back, and disturbance and lack of privacy to the house at the front. The current planning application makes no reference to the pre-application advice, and it can only be assumed that this is because the advice does not support the current development proposals. In addition, the proposed dwelling will be located under overhead power lines on telegraph poles, which is a real health and safety concern, especially during construction, and it is not stated if the power company has given approval. These overhead power cables are the main electricity supply to the houses in the area, including ours. It has also not been demonstrated that access is suitable for construction and emergency vehicles, as pointed out by the parish councillor. The proposed development is therefore clearly contrary to the... Sorry? Okay, and it would also have a severe impact on wildlife which live in the adjoining woodland, including nesting red kites, owls and foraging bats. The proposed development is contrary to the adopted development plan and should be refused in accordance with the Town and Country Planning Act, as no other material considerations have been demonstrated to be contrary to these policies. If for any reason you do not agree, I would urge you to defer for a site visit to view the negative impact that this dwelling would have on the character of the wooded area of Beech Lane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Committee, any questions? I see no questions, so thank you very much, Mr. Wilson, for your time and presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, Mr. Giuliani and Mrs. Green.
Thank you, Chairman, councillors. I've applied for planning permission to construct a small dwelling in the south part of the existing garden of my house. I've lived in this house for 45 years and I like the location, and there is plenty of space at the bottom to build this house. I'd like to live in this house for the rest of my life, so I want to make it eco-friendly. I want it to have disabled access, just in case as I get older I need it. The position of the house, of the new one, will be good because it's near the co-op shop and the bus stop. So I think it is suitable for me to live in. And also I can then release my existing family house for enjoyment by another family. I've been in the village for 50 years and I've been involved with the village. I've been helping with a youth club, volunteer, library, things like that. And also I opened a dental practice in the house 40 years ago. And I moved out to larger premises in Checkenden 20 years ago. And I think this dental practice has been used well by the community. My husband was chairman of the parish council for a few years, and he was also instrumental in developing the neighbourhood plan, and he was one of the first to be accepted in the area. So I'm very aware of the aims of the new neighbourhood plan, and I've tried to make sure that this house complies with all these aims. I just would like to make this house as carbon neutral as possible. I want it to be well insulated. I want it to be low maintenance, and really as much as a passive house as possible. As far as the access is concerned, initially we're going to have, and I think this will always be the case, joint access with the existing house. So for the first 10 metres of this access, there will be plenty of space for any fire engines to get past. So really, I just I hope you'll see that this is quite a good development. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, have we got any questions? Councillor Rob.
I don't know if this is one that you can answer, Mrs. Green, but the new development at Bramley, which sort of will be effectively at the back near where your proposed house will go, have you liaised with those people about the possibility of using their access to get into your proposed house?
Yes. When, as my neighbour said, we put in for just advice, pre-planning, we had hoped to get access onto that little lane, and we had got permission by the previous owners of the one owner of water, and then he sold it to a couple of others. This chap who's speaking managed to get hold of this house as front. The builder managed to squeeze in, and I don't think it's at all in keeping with Beach Lane. It's been squeezed in, and they won't be affected because it's beyond them. But Bramley will be the nearest house to me, and they don't want access. They actually haven't got the power to say no because they don't own the road. But I would acknowledge their worries about that. And they can't really see it because there's quite a high hedge. Even the photographs, the hedge has got higher, and they can still see all trees. And in fact, there'll be no impact on the neighbours at all, really. It's not overlooking the premises or whatever, and the trees will all be preserved.
Thank you.
So thanks.
Have we got a couple of minutes just to talk about the access?
Not unless someone asks you a question. Councillor McDonald.
Can I ask you about the access? Yes. I mean, there's the parish, Wicklow Parish went into a lot of detail about access for particularly emergency fire engines, and it's the actual distance between the road and the house is 51 metres, just over 51 metres. The length of hose, as somebody said, is 45 metres, and the general guidance within the manual of streets, or which is only a guidance document and really applies to new developments, considers, and so does the fire brigade, considers driving or backing up 20 metres is more than adequate. So although one can say this isn't the ideal access, because ideally it's acceptable within the rules. And secondly, that it's not, as I understand it, this isn't a planning issue, it comes with building regulations. And we try as architects to actually do the planning and still make sure it goes through the building regs. And so we have measured this, and they say they've measured it 2.7. It's actually 3 metres and 4 metres where the housing is to allow a pathway through. So effectively, without going into a lot of detail, it's building regs, but I'm pretty certain that the fire officers would accept it. And to be quite honest, they would say, well, we wouldn't go there, we would go up on the road next door. But that's, I think, does that, hopefully that clarifies the issue.
Okay, are there any further questions? No further questions. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and presentation. Right, are there any questions to go back to Tom with? Planning officer.
Very quick one, Tom. Can you just explain the width of the access and the possible impact on the amenity of the existing, the host property of having the access going past?
Could be an issue. I mean, I think there's a lot of examples of this sort of development across the district, as you probably know. Quite a few have been to this committee in the past because they are quite controversial in terms of having that access, but it's not an unusual situation to have. And this one as well is just a single property that it's going to be running past, whereas a lot of them tend to run past more than single property. So there's more of an impact, if you like. Or there might, a lot of background developments have more than one house, so there'll be more comings and goings than there would be with this single house here. So it's a single house comings and goings affecting a single house, essentially. And at the back of the property, the new property, to the west would be affected, but to a lesser extent because they have a sort of more enclosed boundary.
Councillor McDonald, question.
Very follow up to Joe. How wide is it? How many metres?
Well, this plan is sort of shows it. I did measure at various points, and it is sort of around 2.93 metres measurement. Across the width. So
you can get road home up that then.
You can what, sorry?
You
can.
Yeah, I mean,
because they're slightly they're less wide on that.
I think we acknowledge obviously the concerns from the parish council in terms of emergency access, and is right in terms of the 45 metre length of hose and the 3.7 metre width. I think we consulted Highways, who would comment on access provision, and they had no objections, no technical objections to the application. They would, if there were concerns about access for emergency vehicles, they would raise that.
So 3 metres isn't an issue, as far as I can see.
It's not, I don't believe it's a reason to refuse planning application, particularly in light of no objections from Highways Authority. I think in this case, the site does benefit. I mean, it's privately owned, the access next door, but I imagine if there's a fire, no one's going to care about that, and they can get the fire engine sort of close to the side of the house from the neighbouring land.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That they wouldn't say it's not wide enough for something to go around.
And as a comparison to Oxford city itself, there are many streets there where the distance between cars parked either side is significantly less than 3 metres, and said fire engine still needs to go down.
Yeah, okay. Right, it's getting towards the witching hour.
Okay.
So if we could move on, we might actually get another one in.
Check with the going forwards, if the property highways would, there'd have to be some conditions so that, there wasn't an argument about bins being in the way, or that this being in the way, or that all of that would be conditioned in terms of the access being kept clear. Is that a thing?
You could ask for it, but whether it happens or not is a different issue, isn't it?
Okay.
If they had a disagreement, then that forms part of the approved scheme would be the access, and that's how they there are several recommended conditions that cover many aspects of the design, detailed layout.
Oh yeah.
Carry on this side.
I can only carry on with the existing application, so we need to pass this one to carry on with the existing one. Okay, I'll give for a motion.
I propose we support officer's recommendation for the simple reason, I think, as Tom Wyatt said, there's so many villages, and I said this months ago, there are so many villages like this with a big piece of land, and you're going to get either houses at the side or houses at the back. And we granted them before. I just think it ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, okay, is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Topping. Is there any debate?
I'm satisfied with the conditions. I think Tom's done a very good job on locking the conditions down. I think it's a beautiful garden, and I hope that you enjoy your house should it be approved tonight.
Okay, Councillor Sandberg.
I've just got one slight concern, and that is I'm not at all against the development, but I'm concerned about the fact that the parish councillor did raise the issue about going against the local plan, and
I don't think it does go against the local plan, but that's.
I'm trying to remember what he said because
I'm trying to move on.
The backland development issue. I'll just put that out there. The backland development issue. I'm not against it at all, but I'm a bit worried about the backland development issue.
The local plan allows it, so that's right.
Does it?
Yeah.
It's important.
I go back to Councillor Topping. Councillor Topping, did you speak?
No, I just think that this should be allowed.
Okay. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much, that's unanimous. Right, and another vote to say that we can carry on with the next item.
Yes.
Yeah, we can only do the next one. So we'll just,
My item online.
Yes, sorry. I think the rules say we can't. We can only agree to do the next one.
I mean,
and go on from that one. If we don't start it, then we can't finish it.
You can, just to clarify, the Constitution says that you can vote to continue the item that you were talking about before 8:30. So you need to start talking about this item now, and then you can finish it, but you can't start a new one.
Can't start another one.
Right.
No, unfortunately, I can't. All those online are waiting for a discussion on the last item of the agenda, which is 24 Van Alloys Industrial Estate. That will actually get deferred and will not be heard at this meeting. Yes, they have. The order we straight away. So it's to carry on with the item under discussion. If we don't get the discussion going, then we can't carry on. Paul, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the demolition of an existing bungalow and outbuilding and erection of a two-storey detached replacement dwelling with an integral garage. Your officers consider that a replacement dwelling is supported in principle in this location by local plan policy H18 as discussed at paragraph 7.2 of the report. In your officer's opinion, the scale and design of the proposed development would not result in any material harm to the character and appearance of this part of Hill Bottom, and would further the conservation and enhancement of this part of the Chiltern National Landscape, as set out in paragraph 7.4 to 7.9 of the report, complying with local plan policies DES 1, DES 2, and EMV 1. Your officers consider that the interrelationship between the proposed dwelling and its immediate neighbours would be acceptable in respect of light, outlet and privacy, as noted in paragraph 7.10 to 7.13 of the report, according with local plan policy DES 6. Your officers consider that the proposed access and parking arrangements would not give rise to conditions prejudicial to highway and pedestrian safety in compliance with local plan policy Trans 5. Matters relating to tree and hedge protection, protected species, biodiversity net gain, drainage, carbon reduction and external lighting could be dealt with through the recommended conditions. Your officers consider that the proposed development will comply with the relevant development plan policies, and on that basis it is recommended that planning permission is granted.
Okay, thank you, Paul. We don't have any speakers. Just to clarify why we're discussing this, the applicant is Mr. W. Dragonetti, which is Peter's son. That's why we're here. Okay. Right. Questions for the officer? There aren't any. Have a proposal, please.
The recommendation.
Proposal, is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Topping. Is there a debate? There is no debate. Back to Councillor McDonald to sum up.
I'm still happy with the recommendation.
Okay, all those in favour, please show. Thank you. Yeah.
Is that a record?
It's 8:30, we can start the final item. We can't.
Yeah, can we vote to carry on? We are within the time.
I'm afraid, yeah, you have to vote prior to the end of the meeting. It literally says you can't vote on the meeting. You have to vote prior to it. I'm really sorry.
I can overrule.
And they have all left.
And they've all left.
Oh, sorry. You were going to speak.
Sorry, Simon.
Yes, sorry. Yes, we will.
We did
Meeting closed.
Meeting closed.
Susie, please could you stop the broadcast?